Pathways, written by Sister Linda Sclero, narrated by Sister Shell Paul. Have you ever traveled on a familiar road to learn that it has been closed, and suddenly you must find a different route? At the time of this writing, this past weekend, my brother-in-law Peter and nephew Chris Sclero drove to the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport after attending a spiritual weekend visit at the Pinetop Branch. To their dismay, the road was closed because of wildfires. They called my husband, an environmental planner, to find the best route to the airport. About 7 hours later, they made it to the airport and miraculously made their flight. Much of my current work involves teaching dyslexic students to read. My niece, Kim Kamjathi, is trained in the same approach and does the same type of teaching as me in another state. My brilliant niece shared this amazing analogy that she thought up. Dyslexic students retrieve their information to make sense of letters, sounds, and words from the right hemisphere of their brain. However, our brains are wired to retrieve that information from the left hemisphere. When working with a dyslexic student for the first time, Kim draws the brain and the pathways and gives them the analogy of being on a dead-end street or stuck in traffic. And now she will teach them something that will make their brain travel in a different direction and get the information on the right pathway. I begged, borrowed, and stole her analogy. I didn't do much begging, but I borrowed it. More importantly, I always assure my students there is nothing wrong with their brain. We simply must find a different path. I always see a look of relief in their eyes. One day, after about 45 lessons, a student said to me, "Miss Sclero, the roads are unblocking." I honestly didn't connect what she was talking about. She said, "Remember? You told me about the roads in my brain. They are unblocking." Needless to say, a tear welled up in my eye at this breakthrough for her. Being on a wrong path has its detriments. For my brother-in-law and nephew, there was a concern of how they would get home sooner than later. For my student, it is how do I make sense of any of these words or letters? The scriptures give us a roadmap to the right path to take. One of my favorites is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." More importantly, being on the wrong path spiritually has greater consequences. Missing the final flight is much more consequential than a road closed to the airport or a pathway to the brain. Which path will you choose? For me, it's a no-brainer.